Chapter 25 is a different type of chapter, as you would realise. We have Dr. Zivai floating through space, having been cast adrift and coming past the three deserting pirates who are still collecting the gold bricks from outer space. I wanted to look at ethics and morals in this chapter, and also the experience of what it might be like to be so utterly alone and doomed and helpless, the position in which Dr. Zivai finds herself. This was inspired by a scene in Gravity, the George Clooney, Sandra Bullock movie, where one of the characters, won't tell you which, has a similar fate to Dr. Zivai. They're cast adrift in space, in a spacesuit, cut adrift, drifting out into space forever and ever until they die. And that character disappears off into the distance, but I was curious as to what happened next from that character's perspective and what it would be like to be marooned and drifting in a spacesuit, knowing that you've got 10 hours of life left and that you are almost entirely helpless, or helpless for all intents and purposes. So this is what I wanted to start looking at here with Dr. Zivai. Spoiler alert, we may check in with her later in the novel to see how she's getting along. And I also wanted to just look at the moral and ethical dilemma. Evans and Fulbrook immediately choose not to put their neck out, stick their neck out to rescue someone in need. Skarsgård has a bit more of a noble instinct, but that thing, if they did save her, they would be saving a mass murderer and effectively pardoning her from the death sentence that Captain Singh has meted out justly or unjustly. One of the things in this whole novel, I know that it's a ripping yarn and a rollicking adventure tale and stuff. One of the things that I always intended to do was to look at morals and to make it a little bit grey as to who's the hero and who's the villain, if indeed there is a hero and if there is a villain. These are not black and white characters. There's good and bad in everyone, and I wanted in life, and I wanted to reflect that a bit in the novel. I don't know how well that sits with a rollicking adventure story. Does a rollicking adventure story need clearly defined good and evil in order to be effective, in order to be gripping and involving and entertaining? Don't know. One of the many things I don't know about this. And it's something that I wanted to just try and see if I could put in the moral ambiguities of our two protagonists, Captain Singh and Salazar, and hopefully make them quite three-dimensional and not all good, not all bad, and well-rounded characters, as you'll hopefully see, and as I will hopefully reveal over time. Another thing I wanted to mention in this week's little video diary entry was that I like the fact that this week's chapter I'd set myself a different kind of challenge. It's a different model or a different style of chapter from the one set on the ship, or indeed the flashback chapters. And I love the fact that in this novel, in these 52 chapters, I'm able to set myself these little assignments, little changes of pace, changes of tone, to keep things sort of keeps things interesting for me, and hopefully it keeps things interesting for you as well. Variety's the spice of life, and yeah, as I think I've said before, this may be the only novel I write, so I'm just sort of throwing everything at it and trying all different types of chapters. That's it for this week. See you next week.